Casa Rocca Piccola in Valletta, and I'm going to quickly give you a feeling of what this house is all about. It's over 400 years old, and it's now a bit of a relic, because all the other houses like us now practically are banks and offices and shops, and we are trying to keep this alive. This is perhaps symbolic now of Maltese aspiration, bit of pretension, some taste. You've got things made locally sometimes, and here you see a little bit of mortar, not just old mortar, because we put a few modern pictures in as well. Behind me is a portable chapel, which was something they used to have in the old days, and around lots of pictures and bits and pieces. To my left over there is a little chapel, which was often the case in these rather grander houses of the past. To your right, you will see the little treasury, and we've got some souvenirs of other times. Among them, the beautiful earrings when the family gave the land to build Tapino Church in Gozo. We have a series of rooms, one behind the other, like you find in the old houses. This room we call the winter dining room. Some of the furniture came from a family house in Florence. There are a few coats of arms and bits and pieces, and it is not an easy room to use. One has to be served here. The chairs are very heavy, and all in all, it's a bit of a showpiece, really. Here we have perhaps one of the real treasures of this house. Here we have the archives, which by a miracle have survived because of one of our grandfathers. He was a military man, he was tidy, and he was at one time president of the Senate, a great character. He'd saved every single document he possibly could. We have hundreds of letters from the 18th century, and a lot of students come here sometimes to do their thesis, to see what there is, and there's a lot of unrecorded history. The statue of St. Paul is again a rather special piece, a bozzetto, a model for a much bigger statue. Among the bits and pieces, we've got some bric-a-brac in a sense. We have things which are put in drawers which are not on show. We have old dresses, we have a wonderful collection of lace, we have curiosities, and when people come and ask specially for a specific subject, we can sometimes help a little bit by emphasizing things specially for them. The sedan chair was not made for this family. It was made for a knight of Malta, Nicholas de Piro, days of Grandmaster Pinto, in the late 1700s, and we are so lucky that it is in such wonderful condition. I must emphasize that this house is still lived in. However, this bedroom is a showpiece. We've had to put some things connected with the family which might interest people from the past. We've got the four-poster bed. Our great-grandmother produced 9 children, 7 boys and 2 girls. Here's her lovely bed, and one of those children is on the way to becoming a saint. He's the founder of a missionary order, now known as the MSSP. Giuseppe Calli, our maternal great-grandfather. The subject is martyrdom, and it is a very depressing picture, but perhaps fits well into the period of the late 19th, early 20th century in which it was painted. Here we are in what we call the green room, a room which can be used. It People can sit here, there's a nice chandelier, there's some pictures all over the place, and more than one curiosity, among them invitations to the coronation of Queen Elizabeth and also to the coronation of George VI. You see Princess Elizabeth meeting the Maltese nobility, all sorts of bits and pieces which today are just curiosities. This room is very much a room which we use. This is our library. It is not the archives. There's poetry here, there's art books, there are all sorts of bits and pieces, a lot of family photographs, and it's a nice room to entertain in. Among the treasures, the pictures up at the top over here, where some of them were on board ship, under the ceremonial barge of Grandmaster Lascaris, and by a miracle they are still together. This is a one-hander. In those days, when this clock was made, it had to be wound 3 times every day, 8 hours. And next to it you can see a girl wearing the Maltese traditional faldetta or ornella. In fact, it's been posed for by a member of the family. This room has a lot of family in it. You can see a whole run of ancestors. We can show 10 generations of Maltese faces from the past. And the piece of furniture, which is outstanding, the bureau bookcase here is locally made, and it is an outstanding piece in the house. A lot of very careful marquetry work, which the Maltese artisan was very good at doing in the old days. As I've mentioned, sometimes we do have pieces which are not museum pieces, but they're of particular interest perhaps to a visitor. In this room we have a mixture. We have some modern art, we have some pictures even painted by the family. But as you will find in a real home, and not so much in a museum, we do have the odd thing which perhaps is special. And on the table here we have something of national importance. These are the only known set of doctor's instruments in silver from the Hospitaller Order of Malta, with the marks of a Grand Master. The knights very often use silver as a complement to even to the poorer people, to show them that they are given importance, without knowing at the time that silver apparently has some qualities of being disinfectant of itself. A lovely story. I suppose we could call this room a folly. You can see a lot of the 19th century here, the art, the style that we call Art Nouveau or Belle Époque. The table is fully laid out so that people who come here can see a very special occasion. This is not used very often. It has been used, and I've sat here on Christmas Day when there are special occasions, but it's great fun. And as far as the tourist is concerned, the tourists can feel that we're making a special effort for them as well. Something which might amuse you is over here in the staircase we've got a picture of Miss Electricity. When my grandfather brought electricity to the house for the first time, around about 1918, his brother-in-law, who was the son of Giuseppe Cali, painted a picture for him to celebrate the arrival of electricity in the house. Here you have her with the Maltese flag, red and white. Yeah. Negative and positive contacts at the top, and look at the angels holding the bulb, the electric bulb, hiding their eyes because the light is so strong. A bit of fun. The other picture next to it is just a match, and it's agriculture.
Hello, my name is Clement de Piro. I manage the property Casa Rocca Piccola on behalf of my family. At Casa Rocca Piccola we have a lot of interesting items connected with the Second World War. As you may know, Malta was one of the most heavily bombed places in Europe. In April 1942, there were more bombs dropped on Malta than in the whole of the Second World War dropped on London. Gives you an idea of how many bombs were dropped here. Fortunately, most of those bombs fell in the sea, otherwise there wouldn't be much left in Malta. In August 1943, Franklin Roosevelt Sr., President of America, sent his son, Franklin Jr., to Malta. And the idea was to try and boost the morale of the Maltese people. So when Franklin Jr. was here, he went around and met a number of people, and he had lunch with my grandfather on the 20th of August 1943. And after that lunch, he wrote something in the visitor's book. And here we have it. So he wrote, "I'm sure it won't be long before my family and I can return your gentle hospitality in America. We will receive you as the heroes you are, who have held high the torch of freedom and courage through all your horror, and by doing so have made possible the victory we are now all achieving." Casa Rocca Piccola had 3 bomb shelters cut from the rock underneath the palace. And if you come with me now, we'll go and have a look. So, this is the tunnel from the garden that takes you down into the smallest of the shelters. We call this shelter the family shelter. It's really just one small room cut out of the rock, and it was used during the Second World War. They would all hide in this small room here. Okay? But under the house there are some bigger shelters too, which were public bomb shelters. What they did is they used the enormous wells under the house, which had been constructed 400 years ago, and they turned them into bomb shelters. If you look down here, you can see all the way to the bottom of the well. Okay, so that's about 40 feet deep, and down here, about 100 people would cram themselves into this space. Okay, now let's go down further. All right, down the corridor, we're going to go and see another shelter. Again, this was cut out originally 400 years ago and then converted into a bomb shelter in 1939. You can see the concrete on the ceiling. There's about 3 feet of reinforced concrete supported by a column in the middle. And the idea was that if a bomb hit the house, hopefully this structure on the top would prevent it from collapsing. On the wall over here is the date, the 11th of June 1940. And that's the date that the first bomb fell on Malta. Okay, so let's go down the other corridors. Right, we're going to go further down. And this is the larger bomb shelter. Some of the concrete has been removed now. You can see how thick it was. And this is the column to support it. And as I said earlier, about 100 people hid in here. And because it was such a large area underground, they used it as a church. So a priest would come and put a religious painting in the little niche on the wall. And then they could have proper church service in this space. You can see. Okay, these tunnels take you to different parts of Valletta. During the Second World War, hundreds of tunnels were constructed from these enormous wells so that people could run into them when the air raid sirens started. I hope you enjoyed seeing the shelter. We look forward to seeing you at Casa Rocca Piccola.